Good morning and welcome back to Practical Stoicism. If you're hearing this message, it's because you don't subscribe to the premium version of this podcast, which blows past the ads and the preamble and gets straight to the point. In fact, that's what it's called, Practical Stoicism, straight to the point. If you're interested in subscribing to that, I would greatly appreciate the support, as the more subscribers I have to that offering, the more I'm able to focus on this project and do more than just the podcast. Also, if you're a subscriber, you get access to an AMA feature. That's an Ask Me Anything feature that allows us to communicate directly and privately for those of you looking for clarification or advice specific to your personal situation. For those of you who are not interested in supporting the podcast, I do have some good news for you. I've received a number of emails about the ads specifically, and I want you to know I share these thoughts, so I both laughed and understood when I read your emails that they are annoying and often unrelated in any way to your specific interests. So number one, the reason they have nothing to do with your interests is because I don't track your personal data. So the ads do not know who you are, and so they are therefore not personalized. I kind of thought that was important. I don't think anybody needs to have their data more tracked than it already is in the broader world. And number two, I've heard your feedback and I'm going to kill these ads. I'm replacing them with what are called host-read ads, so-called because I read them in my own voice and in my own style. I'm hand-picking these advertisers, and while they may not be specifically related to your interests, when they aren't, I want you to know that I chose them because they were fun. As a for instance, this first one, when you hear it, which will be next episode or the one after that, I think you'll get a kick out of who the sponsor is. Or I think that some of you of a certain age will get a kick out of who the sponsor is. Some of you may not even know who they are because you might be too young to remember the franchise. But it's a good one, and I hope you enjoy it when you hear it. Of course, I do hope that you'll subscribe and become a member of Straight to the Point, but I understand not everyone can do that, and I hope that this change for those individuals makes the non-paid version of this podcast a little less obnoxious with its ads. Also, you may be noticing a drop in audio quality for this episode. I'm in a hotel room. My Stoic practice is being tested because the air conditioner in this hotel room is not currently functioning. And this hotel room is located in Dallas, where it is projected to be 93 degrees out today. And we are on the sun-facing side of the building. So I'm not happy recording this podcast episode, but I hope that that doesn't come through, other than that statement I just made that I'm not happy. And with that, let's get to the meditation, which is number 9 of book 3. Here it is. Your ability to control your thoughts. Treat it with respect. It's all that protects your mind from false perceptions, false to your nature and that of all rational beings. It's what makes your thoughtfulness possible, and affection for other people, and submission to the divine. Of the meditations in book 3, this is undoubtedly my favorite. It speaks to a basic tenet in Stoicism that we've heard multiple times before since starting our journey with Marcus and his meditations in January of this year. For those of you listening later, this year is 2022. If you do not have control over your mind, everything else goes to pot. If you are not paying attention, remember the word prosike. If you are not standing tall as an ever-alert sentry over what you are thinking, whether out loud or to yourself, you will wind up habituating poor thoughts. Habituated poor thoughts will begin to shift everything about your character, how you view the world, how you think about yourself, how you view others, and how you relate to, as Marcus says, and as an atheist, I understand some of you might not like this wording, the divine. However, if you've been listening since the beginning, all Marcus means by the divine is nature. Nature is a flowing thing, a thing which is forever getting along with itself and all its parts in a way that, while not always peaceful or calm or kind, are part of a grander picture of functionality. Nature works in a way that all of it gets along in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't get in its own way. It is a thing which, in fact, is incapable of getting in its own way. When Marcus talks of the divine, he's likely referring to a supernatural force that's making all this possible, maybe an embedded consciousness within the fabric of existence, but you don't need to think of it that way. If you're a secularist, for example, as I am, or just a non-believer who would prefer to leave God out of the meditations, you can fairly easily. It's a little stickier when we get into the cosmology of Stoicism, which we will touch on in later books not by Marcus, but the bits of greatest utility from Stoicism do not come from its cosmology. They come from its practical approach to living by thinking of yourself as part of nature, which, again, Marcus thinks of as the divine. And at the center of nature is that unifying thought of never getting in its own way. You probably remember the line from one of the very first meditations, if not the first one. Human beings are meant to work together like the rows of teeth, upper and lower. That one's from book 2, and I think it is meditation 1. And everything else we've talked about since the start of this year, again, 2022 for those of you just listening, will not work if you are not paying attention, if you are not practicing prosike. And this meditation is all about reminding you of that concisely and clearly. Your ability to control your thoughts, treat it with respect. It's all that protects your mind from false perceptions. The moment you lose track of your thoughts, the moment you fall asleep at your post, for every moment you're less than diligent, false perceptions begin to slip in, and you get further and further down a side road that will find you acting against yourself, your fellow humans, and the best interests of your community. Thank you for listening to this episode of Practical Stoicism. Again, I'm in Dallas this and next week for a convention, so I apologize for the reduction in audio quality, but sometimes work just puts me in those situations. If you'd like to support this podcast by signing up for the premium version, check the show notes for a link to do that. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, practice prosike and take care.